Hello and welcome back to Music Impossible. This is Beginning Music Theory for Middle School to Adults, lesson number 7. We're going to tackle today the bass clef. We did treble clef a few lessons ago. Now we're going to go to the bass clef, and just like treble clef, if you already know bass clef, you're ahead of the game. That's great. Remember, we're laying great foundations, and we're going to be able to build on this as we go. But still, do the work, go through the exercises, get in the habit and the routine of doing the work every single time you come out. All right, let's take a look at the bass clef. Now, the bass clef, also known as the F clef, originally around the year 1200, 1000, somewhere in there, in that late medieval period, music started to be written with clefs. And it was sort of a stylized letter F. That was the clef. And over the years, it's evolved to what we see today. About 150 years ago, we sort of settled on this particular symbol. And it's called the F clef because wherever those two dots are that you see on the screen, that is where the F is. So since the two dots on either side of the fourth line, that's going to be the note F. And it's going to be the F below middle C. Bass clef is typically used for your lower pitched instruments, things like cello and basses and tubas, trombones, timpani, to name a few. Bassoon in the woodwind section is another good example of bass clef. So let's take a look at the notes in bass clef, and we're going to see as we go from top to bottom. Remember lines 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The line number 1 is the bottom line. That's the note G. And as we go up, we have the notes G, B, D, F, and A. And we'll talk about some mnemonic devices to help us remember that here in just a few minutes. And in spaces 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have A, C, E, and G. And just like my recommendation, and I'll put it again in the classroom section of this lesson, go look at some extra resources, buy some note cards. There's some great choices out there on Amazon. I'll put a link of the one I like. And also the apps like Quizlet will also help you. If you just go to the search bar, type bass clef notes, it'll take you through these. Now, I like to go one note further when I look at the spaces in bass clef and add that B on the top of line number 5. That's the B just below middle C. And I just like the mnemonic device that we're going to talk about here in just a second. So there's your bass clef notes, all the lines and spaces. Now, just like any other staff, and we'll talk about this in the next lesson or two, is you can go above and below the staffs, and we call those ledger lines as you continue to add extra lines going up or down below the staff. So let's talk about some of those mnemonic devices I was talking about. A mnemonic device is just a fancy word that means, something, a little saying or a silly song sometimes that helps you remember something. And so our silly saying that's most common for the bass clef lines is great boys deserve fudge always. That's a good one. There's one that I like in particular that I like to teach my students, and that is great big dragons, or dogs sometimes, dragons from, I don't know, pick anywhere that starts with an A that you like. We'll go with Alaska. Great big dragons from Alaska, or great big dogs from Arizona, something along those lines. And so that's your mnemonic device, or something that's going to maybe help you remember that. And a little mnemonic device I like for the spaces is going to be this one. I like, let's see, let's look at, and now a mnemonic device I like for the spaces, the most common one is probably all cows eat grass. You may have heard that one before, particularly if you've studied piano or any bass clef instrument. Another one that I like, that because you can include that B right up there at the top, right? You have that B that we added on the top line, on the 5th line, and we could do all cows eat gummy bears. Kind of like that one. Gives you a little extra note to memorize there. It's kind of an easier mnemonic device. So Great Big Dragons from Alaska, All Cows Eat Gummy Bears. Those are some of my favorite. Now, you want to get to a point where you don't have to think about it and you don't have to count in your head. Great Big Dogs from F. F. Okay, that's an F. And so you want to get to a point where you just sort of memorize those. Another kind of hint that we've talked about before too is that as you ascend or go up the staff, you go in alphabetical order. So if I were to go up the staff, and the bottom line is G, the next space is A, and then B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it would continue to repeat as you continue to rise, and then it's just reverse ABCs when you come back down. So that's another way to help you discover and learn what those notes are. So take some time, learn the notes on the bass clef and mix into the notes from the treble clef and continue to drill those until they just become second nature to you. The faster that you can get these memorized, and this is going to take some repetition. It's going to take some time and effort. But once you get them memorized, boy, it's really going to speed up your music theory knowledge, your ability to evaluate pieces of music, write pieces of music. It's going to be so much easier for you if we can commit that to memory. All right, as always, do the assignments, do the work. We've got some identifying some notes on the staff coming up. We're going to throw in some treble clef and bass clef as well, just to keep both of those fresh in your brains. All right, until next time, we'll see you. Do the work. Have a great day. Bye.